everybody. It's me, Benjamin Krudwig, and this is episode number 27 of the Design Time podcast. This is actually episode 27, part 2. I recorded a podcast in January, early January, right after the new year, on my old computer, and I was, at that time, using iMovie to edit, and it just would crash every time I tried to edit it. So, that computer and I have history, and I now have a new computer with a new setup completely. So, hi everybody, and I'm sorry it's been so long since I've seen you. Welcome to any new subscribers and new viewers who have just found me, and hello to all of my existing and returning viewers. Like I said, this is episode number 27 of the Design Time podcast. This podcast is about knitting, spinning, crocheting, weaving, and all things fibery and awesome. The overarching theme about this podcast in particular is design. So I am a designer. I knit and I crochet and I weave and I sew and create garments from fabric I've woven and fabric I've bought. So I do take that kind of bent, and I hope that you enjoy that. So Happy New Year to all of you who I haven't seen in a while. And now that January is nearly over, today is the 30th, Happy New Year. I hope that it's been okay for you. I'm not going to get into politics on my podcast because even though I have very strong beliefs, I do want this place to be a communal area where people can come together and just take half an hour to an hour out of their day that doesn't have anything to do with the current political climate. So, welcome. Today is going to be kind of a strange episode. Maybe it won't be that strange, but I have stuff that I don't remember if I've talked about yet because I recorded once, and things. I'm pretty sure I don't have anything missing. I haven't sent anything off recently, so I don't have that problem. But I'm definitely gonna not remember exactly what I've said before. So I am actually going to jump right in to finished objects. So the first one that I am going to talk about is this hat here. This is an I-cord hat. I have an I-cord maker that is just like a hand crank. I got this years and years and years ago before I was really even into knitting. This was during my crochet period, so I had already learned how to knit but put it away. In between picking knitting back up and while I was crocheting, I got an I-cord maker, and I believe it was for when I was doing amigurumi. Sometimes I needed, like arms or legs or drawstrings, whatever. It was a really easy way to create I-cord without knitting it. So I took 2 hanks of fingering weight yarn, and I am also using a new webcam. So right now it's definitely washing out me and this color. Let's see. That's better. So it's kind of a rusty red color up here, and then a gray down here. I hand dyed this. This is Anzula Dreamy that I dyed myself. And then the bottom one is, I believe this one was Dirty on Purpose from Woolen Vine Yarns, and I don't remember the colorway. I actually really like it. It's a very thick and bulky hat. There is a loop. I don't know if you can see this. There is a loop of I-cord on the top that I used to hang it. I just had a little bit of left over, and I didn't really want to try to weave in the ends of I-cord. Doesn't really make sense, so I just created a loop that I could hang it from. I will be blogging about this. Again, this year has been a little strange getting acclimated to, like, the first 2 weeks I worked really, really hard for my day job, and then these last couple of weeks, like, I front-loaded my month, and so these last couple of weeks have been kind of like a second break, but working fewer hours. I was still working, but working fewer hours. So, yeah, I've been doing a lot of creating. I will be blogging about this and how to create this, so it'll be a free pattern. This is good if you just have a lot of fingering weight scrap yarn and you either have an I-cord maker or you love knitting I-cord. There is something very rhythmic about hand knitting I-cord and having that kind of just process of knitting, 4 stitches, 5 stitches over and over and over and over again. And then you have this like tube of yarn. It's pretty fantastic. So let me actually grab the I-cord maker that I'm talking about. It's called the Embellish Knit, and I'm not certain if this is still around, but I love it. It's much quicker than hand knitting I-cord. So I'd highly recommend, if you want to do something like this, to get an I-cord maker. So this is the first finished object that I have. Whew, my hair is so messed up. So this is not a trick of the light. I did dye my hair last week, and I am not thrilled with how it looks anymore. I guess it's okay. It's fading into more of a teal, which I'm glad about. But it was a really dark, deep blue like my glasses, and it faded almost immediately. So, I'm not pleased with that, but that's okay. Anyways, I digress. So the second finished object I have for you today is another hat. And this is a new pattern that I'll be releasing shortly. This is going to be called Salazar's Serpents. So this is inspired by Salazar Slytherin, the original Slytherin from the Harry Potter series. The founder of that house, basically. And this is knit out of Anzula Ava. This is a base that they released last year in the Frankie colorway, which is this lovely green color. This reminds me of the 2017 Pantone color of the year, which is greenery. And I decided, let's see. This thing doesn't want to focus, does it? Let's see. I'm gonna just try some things. Nope. Okay. So I might have to figure out a new way to podcast, but this is okay for now. So this is the what's left over after knitting the hat. So you could get pretty much just one hat out of the skein, but then you'd have something left over for whatever else you want to do. And this features snake cables that I designed, and also some beads for their eyes. So I'm gonna put that back on. Oh man. Okay. This is fun. So the way that I knit it is more of a slouchy type beanie. You can go down a needle size. I used a US size 4 for this. You can go down a needle size to like a US size 3 and get a tighter gauge. That way it's more like a beanie. But I'm really happy with this size. So it's less constrictive than some other beanies that I've knit. I think I'm gonna do, yeah, I'll do my spinning finished object now. This is some finished yarn. It's a little washed out in this image here. And this is hand spun. It's a Navajo 3-ply. This is, I believe, Targhee, organic Targhee from Spunky Eclectic Fibers in the tobacco leaf colorway. And this is destined to become something that I cannot talk about. But I'm very, very happy with how this turned out. It's one of my favorite yarns that I've done. I wish that my webcam would autofocus, because, I don't know, I'm pretty happy with how consistent this particular hank of yarn is. So in a few months, so probably actually later this year, this fall, you will learn more about this yarn. But until then, my lips are sealed. The next, I'm excited for this part. So the next finished objects I have, I'm just going to do kind of glances for you. I am pretty sure I mentioned this. Maybe I didn't mention this, did I mention this in December? I might not have mentioned this in December because it might have been early December that I podcasted. Oh well. So in this podcast, I'm going to announce this. Sincere Sheep, which is a yarn company out in Napa, California, um, run by Brooke, she and I decided to collaborate on basically a three-piece woven collection. And this will be my first collection by myself outside of Shack Spindle Company, my former job. And I am very, very thrilled. I keep looking down at them, so, I'm glancing down. That's why. I am very, very thrilled with how these turned out. So what I'm going to do is go through each of the patterns, I suppose, and then I'll talk about the yarns that are in each one. Um, it's a little, let's see if I can get this going here. All right, so I am using their three bases of Cormo. They have Cormo Sport, Cormo Fingering, and Cormo Worsted. Cormo is a type of wool. Their yarn is grown and milled and dyed here in the United States, and they use completely natural dyeing. So it's all plant-based or mineral-based, I believe. They have a couple that are mineral-based dyeing processes. So let me go through an order of weight, starting from the chunkiest to the finest. This is also a collaboration with Jenny the Potter. So let me give you a background of what's going on. So this is called the Intersections, or Intersections, a Woven Collection by Benjamin Krudwig. And it will debut at Madrona this February, which is in a couple of weeks. And so it's a collaboration not only between me and Sincere Sheep, but also with Jenny the Potter. So any of you who have done the show circuits, particularly Madrona or Rhinebeck, you'll know Jenny the Potter. She always has a line out, almost at the door, but it's a booth like outside. So a line way down the row of vendors. At first, only one of the patterns is going to use I was sent buttons, and, a variety to choose from. And at first, I was only going to use buttons on one pattern, as I had proposed. But once I saw all of the buttons with all of the yarn colors, my mind started playing around with how can I use buttons in different ways, because the buttons matched beautifully with the yarn and really the feel that I was going for. The aesthetic that my design process went through is something that I like to call refined rustic or rustic refined. It's something that I think you can see in most of my work, is that there is something very sleek and elegant about something that you would normally associate with kind of rough and tumble. May it be the yarn is kind of a burly spun, or I'm taking natural elements and creating a more refined motif out of them. Hence, actually, like the hat that I'm wearing right now, you have snakes, which are a very slithery, organic thing, but I've created structured cables with them. So let me dive in. This first one is a cowl, but I'm not going to show all of it. The buttons on this are wonderful. They're very shiny. The glaze on these is very shiny, but it's kind of like an orangey, another rusty orange color with this lovely purple. I forgot what the purple. I'm probably gonna forget all of the colorways here, but that's okay because they're gonna be in my patterns that will be available on my Etsy site. So this is just folded up purple. And all of these can be done on a Shacked Cricut Loom 15-inch, by the way. This is the yarn itself. So this is their Cormo worsted. It's definitely, it's not like a woolen spun from, say, Brooklyn tweed, but it is definitely loftier than a worsted spun yarn. And I have to say that even though it's lovely and luscious in the skein and in the ball and when you work with it, the way that it washes up it just gets super, super soft. And I think that's partly that's the cormo. That's really the cormo that blossoms when washed. So this in particular would either make a great hat or a wonderful quick sweater. So if any of you are thinking about doing a Rhinebeck sweater, I would seriously consider getting cormo worsted from Sincere Sheep. Uh, I had the pleasure weaving with all this. I wish I have enough to knit with now, which is awesome. I really, really wish that with weaving that you handled the yarn more. You know, it's on the loom and it's on the stick shuttle, so you're not really passing it through your fingers much or holding the work. But what can you say? You know, weaving is still wonderful and much faster than knitting. So that's the first project. The next one is in their Cormo Sport Weight yarn. And this one is in two colors. I got this kind of persimmon colored orange. Again, this camera is washing it out a little bit. And then this stormy gray color. The sport weight is definitely a sport weight. It might be a lighter sport weight based on the fact that this is probably like small batch milled. There are sometimes inconsistencies with the yarn, you know, with some thicker areas and some thinner areas, not like you would get in some commercially spun yarns, like big box commercially spun yarns. I think that that's part of the unique quality of, you know, American grown, American milled yarn. You know, I would say that it can be more consistent. It's a lot more durable than Brooklyn Tweed. I love Brooklyn Tweed, so don't get me wrong there. I'm not complaining about Brooklyn Tweed, just kind of comparing popular brands. I will say, if you're familiar with Brooklyn Tweed's new base arbor, this is mill spun similar to arbor. So it has that nice twist to it. But it's not perfect. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyways, so this one is a somewhat plaid scarf. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but here is the plaid. And then here are the buttons, which are like a really deep, almost purpley black color. And I love the closure that I did here, and twisted fringe. And again, these patterns will be available on my website, but if you go to Madrona, I believe she'll have physical copies for you to buy there, as well as kits. I'm pretty sure she's going to have kits of some of this stuff. So the next one, which might be my favorite, is the Intersections Shawl. And this is knit in her Cormo fingering weight, which I would say it's a light fingering, in between a lace to a light fingering. It is not like a sock yarn fingering weight area. Especially, I did find that this was the most inconsistent of the yarns, as far as it wasn't all one size, but that just made it all the more wonderful to weave with. This is a 2-ply. It's definitely more of a woolen spun. Oh yeah, and this one is so bright that you're not even gonna see. But you can see some of the inconsistencies. This is more like hand spun in my opinion, but it's still very, very strong. I can break it by hand, but it still passes like the ping test. So this is the base that I use. This is Cumulus. And then I used 5 mini skeins for accents. I'm sorry, I just shook the camera. So these are some two light blues and then 3 greens. Ooh, okay, here we go. I have not reballed or reskeined any of this up. And without further ado, I'll show you. Too much yarn. No such thing, but too much yarn. Let me show you the side with the buttons. So this pattern is both a shawl and a poncho. So if you button it up, it's a poncho. If you don't button it up, it's a shawl. And I did a fun grid pattern here that will be laid out in the pattern. And for this one, I did braided fringe, which I am loving. I am sending these off in the morning, so I wanted to show them off in this podcast. However, if you want more details, you can go over to sinceresheep.com and subscribe to their newsletter, and you'll get some more sneak peeks from my collection. So, um, yeah, all three of these patterns will be in one collection. I will have them available individually and in a set on my Etsy shop. Ravelry doesn't have weaving pattern support, so I am unfortunately going to have to move these patterns over to Etsy. I may see if I can accommodate them on my website. However, I know that those charges can be pretty expensive, and I'm not sure how popular the weaving patterns are going to be to offset the costs. So that's these. Speaking of weaving, speaking of weaving, I am teaching 2 classes at Interweave Yarn Fest this March. I know I have mentioned it before in the last podcast, but I thought since it is nearly February and we are exactly 2 months from today from my courses. So I am teaching a 6-hour course on Thursday, March 30th called Design on the Fly. It's a rigid heddle course, which is, like, if you know me, Shack Spindle Company has the Cricut loom, but any rigid heddle will be fine. And this class is going to be talking about how to be a better designer. So not just how to weave. I don't want to spend too much time on the how to weave portion and spend more time on the how to design a woven project with what you have in your stash. Or when you're at a show and you see 2 skeins of yarn that you absolutely love, how to design something with those 2 skeins to really utilize all of the yarn for one, and for 2, just really let it, like, make the yarn shine, not just be like, oh, well, here's a plain weave scarf. A lot of what I do is plain weave, but it's how you do it that matters. So that is the first class I'm teaching. It's a morning to afternoon class. Then that evening, I am teaching, embroidery and joining techniques on the Zoom loom. So I'm teaching how to use a Zoom loom kind of as an embroidery hoop with your woven fabric still on the Zoom loom. And then also teaching you how to sew or join Zoom loom squares together, because there are a few methods that you can use to learn. So I wanted to get that in there. Sorry, I saw a bug crawling around and it made me a little worried. Anyways, can you tell that it's Monday night? So yeah, if you would like to take either of those classes, if you'll be in the Loveland area during Yarn Fest, which is March 30th to April 2nd, please, I would love to have you in my class. I am very excited. This is my teaching debut. Well, it's my fiber arts teaching debut. And I would love to have just a really awesome, fun time with you all in the spring. I'm going to take a sip of water and a sip of wine. And it's like design time, or like DeWine time. I should not quit my day job and become a comedian, right? Okay. So you've seen this finished object before, but it's been a year. And I have news about it. So I designed a pattern for Yarnbox last year using MJ Yarns, which is a yarn company local to me. He actually lives and dies about, I would say, like 15-minute walk from my house. So MJ Yarns is by Jonathan Berner, and he has 2 different labels. He has Red Label and Black Label. I believe Black Label is the yarn that he sells to yarn shops and distributors, which has their own select colorways. And then he has Black Label. I don't remember which is which, but then one that's an in-house yarn that he sells retail, and like by himself, that's its own set of colors. So I designed this pattern out of Peruvian Dream, which is an alpaca base. Oh, let me scroll back, or wheel back. This is Peruvian Dreams yarn, and in the Cerulean Twilight color. And this is the Nycteris shawl pattern, which is an asymmetrical shawl that utilizes stockinette and garter, and then a fun like toothed ridge, as well as a unique increase pattern to get the different sized wedges. These I use eyelets. So I know I don't sound very eloquent right now. I used eyelets to create the increases just because I thought that would be a really stunning detail on the pattern. So I literally just got this in the mail today. So I'm very, very happy that I have it back. I'd like to take some new photography for it on myself and probably on my wife. And then also, I just want to announce, it used to be a paid-for pattern, but since it's been a year since Yarnbox had it, I decided to make it a free pattern in my Ravelry store. I think that this is a wonderful potato chip knitting project. I don't remember how much yarn it uses, but you can find it on Ravelry as the Nycteris shawl. I will have information down below um, with all of the details, but it's just, I like it. I really like this pattern. So I'm so glad to have it back. It's been a long time since I've had it in my hands, but that's okay. That's okay. All right. So the next bit of stuff on the docket is going to be works in progress. I have a few works in progress on the go right now. I've been busy, kind of. Oh, did I not talk about that? Shoot. I have another pattern that I think I talked about when I recorded this the first time, which, I don't know, guys. Oh well. I'll remember later. And if I didn't talk about it, it's not going to be the end of the world. So anyways, in this project bag, which is my project bag that I designed the fabric. So these are fabrics that you can find in my Spoonflower shop. They're all botanically inspired except for this one right here, which is Bubbles. And the actual fabric is much larger than this. There's a lot more detail to this particular panel. The rest of them they're very accurate swatches. So there's a bunch of colored side, and then I also have a series of black and white branches. So living in here, and living in my yarnet that I got at TNNA in Washington, D.C. last year. I put this down for a little while, but I had to roll my yarn up in a ball because I had to rip out, and I'll give you the story. And so it's just kind of flopping all over the place, and I needed a place to put it. So that's what this is for. Well, okay. I am all tangled here. So I've been working on a hand-spun cardigan for myself with all of the yarn that I spun 2 years ago for Spinzilla. Every day or two, I spun a braid of Spunky Eclectic Fibers fiber into yarn, and I was part of the club for that year, and I ended up having a whole lot of fiber stash. So I decided to use as much of it as I could, and I'm almost out of it now, actually. I think I gave one skein away as a gift, and I have another skein that doesn't quite fit the color profile of the cardigan. So, it's all bunched up on the needles, but it's striped, alternating colors. One moment. Okay, and we're back. So if you can see alternating colors here, the body is 3 different skeins of yarn, and you'll see the lighter shade up here that fades into like a gray. And then if you could see, the gray continues down to here. That was one colorway, which was called Caribou. Then I have the kind of like sagey green color up here going into the more colorful shades down here. And then, oh, second skein down here, which is more green. This one was Hungry. The alternating stripes up here are Hungry. And then this one was Kismet, I believe, down in here. I can't remember well enough, but it's been a while. So I knit the body. It's basically a fingering weight yarn, and it's a raglan style cardigan. I don't think I'm going to do buttons. I don't know. I am in that kind of gray area at this point where I need to make that decision now. So I knit the body in fingering weight, and then for the sleeves, I picked up the stitches. I knit 2 together across the way while holding my yarn double, and I went up a needle size, which created these really interesting marled sleeves. So this one you'll see is the Kismet colorway. This one is the Squash Blossom colorway. And what's interesting to me is that I wound them into a ball, and then I held inside and outside together, and some of the colors actually lined up. So, okay, right here, the dark black and brown and gray colors lined up. Right here, the kind of yellowy orangey colors lined up. Over here, the greeny browns lined up. Right here is where you get most of the marl happening, where they're very different. I was very, very happy with how that showed up. It's an eclectic sweater made out of spunky eclectic yarn. So, I did that. I knit the hem, and then I knit the button band. I tried it on, and it was too short. I was not thrilled because I had been measuring and I was trying it on, and I thought, oh no, this is totally fine, but maybe it just sprung back together. I don't know. I know it will grow as I wash it, but it's not going to grow significantly. So I ripped out the button band and the hem, and I picked up, and I am currently knitting it all together. So you can see I am currently working on the ribbing. I am using Caribou for the ribbing, and if you can see, I'm going to try to do this. It started in the gray that I ended with on the body, and then I have moved into the dark brown, and then it will eventually, if you can see, go into a black. So again, I'm not entirely certain whether or not I'm going to put buttons on this. I might just be a cozy cardigan that I wear around the house, but I am tempted to put buttons in. I don't know. If you guys have opinions or thoughts, let me know in the bottom comments below. I am knitting these with my Knitter's Pride carbons. I did bend one. Sometimes I'm a really tough knitter. I'm also using these needle protectors from Knitter's Pride, where, let's see, so these are US size 4, by the way, and I'm using the short tips. I don't think I have long tips in a US size 4. I'm not sure. But there's like a slightly rubbery thing here with a slot, and you just slide your needles in there, and it protects your project bag, and it protects your knitting from falling off the needles, which I have done more than once with this sweater and have had to fix drop stitches. Whoops. the inside of my project bag is canvas, so it really doesn't matter whether or not I have a protected needle. But when it does matter is, since all those stitches are bunched up on the needles, I would hate for it to come off again. Whew. Let's get the cord in there and zip up. Oh dear, okay. The next project is in my wolf, or not wolf, my fox. Can you see my coffee stain? That's great. I need to throw this in the wash. This is my fox bag from Bags by Terry. I have another bag by them, but I'm not using it with a project. It's just like yarn storage right now. And I am knitting what I am aptly naming, yarn barf in my bag, my fox shawl. So I'm not very far on this row. I had to put it down in the middle of the row. So it's just a regular triangular shawl, using this kind of rusty color on the outside and a gradient kit in the middle. I started by having my, what do you call these? My increases here, like down the center and on the sides. And now I have switched with the second color to have my increases along the join of the two colors. The yarn is from Woolly Wonka Fibers, and I think it's her Caradwin sock base. I got this at Salida Yarn, or Salida Fiber Festival 2 years ago. So I didn't go last year. That was when I was transitioning jobs, so it was a little difficult to find time to go down. So I am loving this. I'm using my Chowgu needles in a US size 6, and it's a 4.0 millimeter. And it's definitely a sock weight, which is, it's taking a long time, but I'm really enjoying this project. So that's this one. Not much to show right now. It's bunched up. I'm probably halfway, maybe a third of the way through the second color. There's 2 more shades of gray. So we'll get there. What did I put in here? That is not a work in progress because I have not worked on it in months. So I guess the next and last thing that I'm going to talk about today is acquisitions. So I am only going to talk to you about one acquisition from Christmas because I don't remember what I've told you guys. And it's really just my favorite acquisition. These are Ginger fabric shears, guys. Like, okay. Headphones users, I'm just going to warn you right now, I'm going to do this right next to the mic so you can hear it. Ready? That's when you know you have a nice pair of scissors. It's when they just glide past each other. It's just like, so good. I love those, and I also got a pair of thread snips. I got a couple of new feet for my sewing machine. I got a buttonholer to replace the one that I broke, and also an even feed foot, so it helps feed the top fabric as your bottom fabric is also moving. So it's good for, like, if you have patterns like plaids or stripes or any prints that you want to line up, it helps to have an even feed foot because it moves the fabric at the same rate. And I got some new clothing, which I always love, some awesome new socks, which, guys, as much as I love socks, I should just knit my own socks. But the kind of socks I love are the really cool, like, funny ones. I got a whole bunch that are art-themed. And you can't really do that with hand-knit socks unless you're doing, like, 000 needles and thread. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So yeah, Christmas was awesome. New Year's was awesome. Got a lot of cool things. Had a great time with my family. Boom. Christmas talk is out of the way. Some more stash acquisition, which is not really stash acquisition, but for an upcoming design that I cannot talk about a whole lot, I did receive some yarn from a Wing and a Prayer farm, which is, where are they located? They're in Vermont, Shaftesbury, Vermont, and it is their 2-ply Aran base. This is super, super soft. If you know Blue Sky alpacas and their yarn extra, it reminds me a lot of that, but this is like so much more wholesome. And it's a little inconsistent because it's, basically it's mill spun, but again, small batch mill spun. And it is so gorgeous. This is a blend of the, I believe, the sheep and the alpaca, or maybe 2 alpacas. This is their fawn colorway, and it was Hayden and Olivia. So I'm pretty sure those are the names of the animals who donated their wool. This is 100 grams and 148 yards approximately. So again, it's a 2-ply Aran weight. And I loved working with it. I can't show you what I made out of it. It's a finished object, but you can't see it. So I am so, so happy to have it. It's 50% wool, 50% alpaca. And in the package, I got a lovely little note from Tommy and the flocks. That's my favorite part, is Tommy and the flocks. And look at the prints on the front. I think these are all natural dye plants. I am not entirely certain, but this is a marigold, and you can definitely dye with marigolds. So I'm happy, and I've hung this up now because it makes me so happy. So keep an eye out for more information from me about the pattern that I made with this. So that's one stash. Oh, the other thing that I have to tell you. They wrapped the tag and the skein of yarn with fabric little bands that are printed with Wing and a Prayer Farm. Gosh, this is here. There you go. I just everything about this company has me head over heels. So I am sure to probably get on their website and order more yarn. What can you do? Like I'm usually very, very good about wool piggery, and the more I get sent yarn support to do patterns with, the more the wool pig wants to just devour me. So yeah. The next one I have not opened, and it's because I also just received it today. I opened the big package just because I didn't want to have too much rustling. But this is from June Cashmere Yarn. I do have the opportunity to review this yarn, and I am super, super excited. I've been wanting to get my hands on this for a while. I don't know if you've seen Eric from Sticks Plus Twine, his most recent podcast. He was also he's received some June Cashmere yarn to review and to play with. I think he got the lace weight or I don't know if he got the fingering weight or the lace weight, but he got it in the indigo colorway, which is gorgeous. Sorry if there's rustling. I just wanted to show you the packaging. I love this color, by the way. Like, can you tell? Can you tell I like this color? Anyhow, I asked for the slate colorway because I am a sucker for gray. This is their lace weight yarn. So let me give you a little feedback, or not feedback, history about June Cashmere Yarn. It is a family-owned business, and it's cashmere from Kyrgyzstan. So this is 100% Kyrgyz cashmere. The suggested needle size is US size 1, and it's 308 yards per skein, and I believe it's a 50-gram skein. Yeah, it's 50-gram skein, so 308 yards and 50 grams is really, really nice. So, the fiber is gathered from cashmere goats in Kyrgyzstan. Then it is spun in Scotland, and then it is so milled in Scotland, and then it's dyed in Maine. So the Saco River Dye House in Maine is who does their dyeing, and it's just wonderful. So you should go to junecashmere.com to go see their other colorways. It's a lot of jewel tones and natural tones, which I really, really love. I also asked for a pattern. You know, I might use this. Yeah, I might use this for using the yarn. It's the All Season Slouchy Hat by Elizabeth Elliot. And I am tempted. It uses 1 skein of June cashmere lace. It's a turned hem, so that sounds nice. I've never done a turned hem by hand. I used to do that when I, like, you know, the loom knit things? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really, really excited to try this. Try the yarn. I don't know if I'll make the hat. It's a slouchy hat, which I don't normally wear, but since I'm going with this, and a slouchy cashmere hat does sound pretty nice. So I don't know. I am tempted to create, like, design my own pattern with it. So we'll see. We'll see. It looks like a pretty easy hat pattern. I am in love with the color, and it feels so good. I mean, guys, it's cashmere. It's 100% cashmere. So I had to say yes when the opportunity came. So that'll be coming down the pipe probably pretty soon. And I believe that's it for stash enhancement. So thank you for watching. I hope I didn't ramble too much on this podcast. It's always a little weird when you're gone and then you come back. Oh, I should remember, I just hit 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you to all of you who subscribed for the podcast. Thank you if you subscribed for the crochet tutorials. There is a whole series of crochet tutorials coming soon, like within the next couple of weeks. So if you know me from that, stick around. If you know me from the podcast and you're not a crocheter, that's okay. You don't have to be. If you are a crocheter, go check out my crochet tutorials. Please, sorry. So yeah, thank you for stopping by. I'm going to be trying to do this monthly, if not every 2 weeks. It just kind of depends on my schedule and what I'm working on at the time. So again, follow me on Instagram. There is a Ravelry group for the podcast. Or follow me on Facebook at Benjamin Krudwig Fiber Arts and Designs to keep in touch with me in between podcasts. And if you want to see what I'm working on, I am going to go. I'm going to finish this glass of wine. I'm going to edit this podcast and pop it up on the YouTubes. So it was nice to talk to you once again. Bye.